The unofficial translation for Hunter x Hunter chapter 408 is here, and the game between Morena and Borksen begins. Now, I can't actually show any manga pages because this is unofficial, but I will walk you through everything that happens in the chapter. And of course, these are unofficial translations, so things could be wrong, but the general idea of the chapter is accurate. So the chapter simply begins with it being Borksen's turn in the card game, and she gets to pick a card. Borksen's first choice is the aim card, or the card that'll make Morena tell her why she is doing everything she's doing. Morena acts kind of surprised and asks why Borksen chose the purpose card. This reveals the very important detail that small talk is allowed during the game, which Borksen did not know about. Morena says that there will be no punishment for small talk and that they're free to get to know each other better. Borksen then asks how many people are in the High Elite total, and she guesses it's about 50. Again, these pages are not from the new chapter, these are from the previous chapter. I'm just using them to kind of illustrate the point. Except Borksen asks one of the other members. She doesn't ask Morena this question. Then Morena says, they will not answer you. They're not allowed to talk in this exchange. She says that there are other members in the group outside of that room, but she won't tell her how many. Based on how quickly Morena answered the question and reacted, Borksen assumes that it is less than 50 members. It's at this point that Morena explains her purpose for doing all of this, and she says, my purpose is the destruction of the kingdom of Kakin. Once that's achieved, I'm planning to push for the destruction of humanity, and for that, I need your power. Borksen is incredibly confused by this, and she says that if a 100 is perfectly understanding everything, then she's currently at a 3. So Morena then starts from the beginning, and she starts to tell her entire life story, just a short version of it. Morena asks if Borksen is familiar with the term Nissen Mono, and Borksen replies and says, yes, you're referring to royalty who don't have the right to inherit the throne, like you. Now here it gets a little confusing, and I'm not entirely sure what part of this means. It could be an issue with the translations, but Morena says, the real Morena Prudo was indeed like that, but I'm not even royalty. The true Morena is in my grave. And then Borksen replies, huh? Then who exactly are you? Morena asks if the words carnival and blasphemy give any hints to Borksen, and Borksen says, yes, festival orphans, I see. We then get a bit of context, and carnival means the Kakin Royal Festival, held once every few years, takes place in a randomly selected village. The royal entourage visits incognito to host a banquet. All villagers chosen are then immediately divided into 2 groups, those who serve and others. Then we get a definition for blasphemy, and this is a bit of a long one. Any act that disrespects the royal family is strictly forbidden, and those who violate this will be sentenced to the death penalty. Before the modern era, even direct speech from lower officials or commoners looking directly at the royal family were punished by death. Even with the progress of democratization today, acts such as contraception, abortion, or genetic testing related to the royal family are considered acts of rebellion and disrespect toward the royal lineage, resulting in immediate execution. And I think what all of that is meant to say is that if you are bearing a child that is of Kakin descendants, you can't get rid of it. Morena says that her mother, who hosted the royal entourage for several days without being allowed to rest or sleep, apparently passed away when Morena was about 2 years old. She says she was without ever being able to recognize that she was pregnant with me or that she gave birth to me. That's kind of odd to me and makes me think it's a translation issue, because how can you be pregnant with someone for 9 months, give birth to them, and then never have realized it? It could potentially be explained with this next piece of information, which basically says that all of these festival orphans had their faces slashed, like Morena's and Broccoli's, and that they were sent to a special hospital where the High Elite was in control of all of the mothers and the children. From there, they were classified as either Nissen Mono or meat, and that Morena was classified as meat. And then basically for 20 years, she went through tons of hardships, and in that, she discovered that she had Nen. And upon realizing that she had this incredible ability, she said, well, I'm going to use this to destroy the Kakin Empire and get my revenge. That was a lot of information, and there's still a lot more to come. But put simply, Morena was born through the carnival, and she was done so illegitimately, so her face was slashed. Then she was mistreated for 20 years under just abusive controllers, and now she's in control of the High Elite and wants to destroy Kakin. That's the simple explanation. She also says that since the carnival is held every few years, it's not a set amount, there have been 7 generations of orphans since her own generation, and she is just incredibly upset with Kakin, and rightfully so, because that means there have been 7 generations of tons of orphans who have just been completely mistreated for their entire lives. Morena says that in order to take down the Kakin Empire, she needs a wide variety of powers, and she specifically needs Borksen. However, she doesn't answer any more questions at this time and makes Borksen draw a card. A member of the High Elite shuffles the cards, and Borksen selects a card at random, and it is the Joker. So the Joker now goes to the graveyard, and then Borksen picks the power card for Morena. So now Morena has to explain her abilities. We also learn that Borksen doesn't necessarily know what Nen abilities are. She has a general understanding, a very basic one, but Morena then goes on to explain what they are, so that takes up about a page, so I'm just going to skip over that because we know what Nen is. Morena also explains her own ability, which I will just re-explain for those of you who have forgotten, which is totally understandable. Basically, Morena can give people the ability to level up in their Nen at specific intervals based on the types of people they have unalived. She explains that there are 22 people she's done this with, and that in order for them to be accepted into her ability, she has to agree with their goals, or their goals have to align. Borksen's a little confused and wants to specify if truly all of their goals is for the downfall of Kakin, and Morena says, not necessarily, really all of their goals are just to kill people. Morena also gives a little bit more background on herself and how she was in the Royal Academy. She didn't really want to do anything with Kakin at all. Even though she was good enough to make it to an officer academy, she still just wanted to live her life unseen and just in a basic job. However, when Beyond announced the Dark Continent mission, she basically realized that the downfall of Kakin was very possible. Morena then explains that she needs a specialist, so she also has to explain what a specialist is and all the other categories, and that the reason she knows that Borksen is a specialist is because of Dogman here, who can sniff out people's abilities before they're even awakened. Morena talks about how specialists are so rare and that she needs Borksen to join her, but Borksen has to have the same kind of goals that Morena has, otherwise they can't work together. I'm kind of skimming through a few pages here because really it's just Morena explaining the basics of Nen. Borksen asks what kind of ability Morena would give her, and Morena says that you'd have to pick my yes card in order for me to tell you that. Remember, the yes card in Morena's deck means that Borksen can ask Morena however many questions she wants, but Morena can only answer with yes, no, or yes and no. Now it's up for Borksen to pick another card out of her deck, and she picks the yes card, which is incredible for Borksen. That means that now she essentially does not have to join the High Elite if she doesn't want to. Because remember, the final card picked is the outcome of the event. So if she finally picks the yes on the last card, then she has to join the High Elite. But she picked it now, which means she doesn't have to. However, what's important here is Morena doesn't end the game here because she wants to know if it's going to be the no card that ends the game or the X card. The X card means that Borksen didn't make a decision and the game just ends. But the no card means that Borksen conscientiously did not join the High Elite. So pretty much Morena is implying here, I will do something bad to you if you pick no. If it's X, you'll probably be fine. Morena says that if you pick the no card, I will no longer try to recruit you. However, now that you've learned our secrets, we simply cannot let you leave without consequences. So now Borksen has to draw the X card, or else she could die or have her memory wiped, or who knows what kind of awful things that Morena has in mind. Morena does specify that if the X card is played, that she won't erase her mind. She would just trust that her and Morena would consider everything that happened as if it had never occurred. So it would just be trusting that Borksen never talked about it. She also explains that she will avoid Borksen and everyone that Borksen knows at all costs for the rest of their lives. So the X card truly is the only decent outcome. A little bit more about how for Morena the game is very high risk, high reward, because she basically ends up with a person who is on her team and who is very loyal, or she has to kill a person and then she has no potential teammate. So high risk, high risk. Borksen is surprisingly calm about this entire situation, and Morena notes this. And Borksen draws her final card, and it is the X card, which means that the only cards left are the no card and the return card, which means her options are either death or survival. It's 50-50. However, right at the end, the very final two panels is the ship has declared martial law, and it is not a drill. Martial law is now in effect. This is a massive cliffhanger, which means that pretty much anything could happen from now on, now that martial law has been declared. So the entire story is just going to explode now. What do you guys think is going to happen now that martial law has been declared? I'm going to make a separate video on that because this video is already really long, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Hit the like button and subscribe for more.